Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games, back with another cool arcade game repair video for you. Now, if you were watching before, and you should have been, we have been working on this awesome Atari Star Wars arcade game. Can you believe this thing? And in the first video, we worked through the power supply. There was nothing wrong with it. And then we worked through the voltage regulator power board. Nothing was wrong with it. And then we worked through the game board. Nothing was wrong with it. Basically just checking the power and all of those. And then we got up here to the monitor, and it's all screwed up. So this is a Color Vector Wells Garner 6100 monitor. CRT, vector, cool, color, awesome. Right? And so we figured out on the last video that the transistors on the frame are all screwed up. And so we're going to check all of those today, get those right, and see if we can get this sucker to fire up finally. This game belongs to our buddy Adam down at the beach, Myrtle Beach. He has Player's Choice games in the mall, and he has a bunch of arcade games in there, and this is one of them. But it's not working, so we got to get it up and playing. Now on the last one, we were just checking everything to make sure that there weren't any issues in the power and in the board and all that. And the thing is up and playing blind. You can hear it. We believe it's sending out a signal to the monitor. The monitor is obviously screwed up. So in this video, we are going to keep working on that monitor. So on the frame here, there are 6 little bottle cap transistors, 3716s and 3792s. And so we're going to take each one of those out, carefully test it, check the insulator that protects it from shorting to the frame, and then put them all back in. What do you think about that? So I checked them last time, and it seems like the 2 on the right over here are both screwed up. 2 of the ones on the bottom are fine, and 2 of the ones on the bottom are screwed up. So that's where we're starting. So stay tuned. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a screwdriver, and I'm going to take those 2 off the side there. They have little holders that are holding them on there, and screws that are on the side here, holding them to the frame. And it seemed to me like last time that the insulators were missing from them, which is a big no-no. So I'm going to pull those out, and then we're going to check in the manual and make sure that the right ones are in the right place, because they're all the same size. You could just put them in the wrong place accidentally. And the thing's not working, so we're trying to track down why it's not working and why it's burning up those transistors. So let me pull those out, and I'll keep track of where they were, and then we can tell what's going on. Okay, folks, so this is the one from the side. This is Q606. It is a 2N3792. Here I have a brand new 2N3792. And we're going to see if that one is like this one. So we've set our multimeter on diode check. I'm going to use these little clips somebody bought me. And we're going to attach one to this pin here. And then check to the body. 0.567. And to the other one, 0.570. So that's how a good one should test. So let's see if we get anything like that on this one. Now this has the little insulator on it, so to touch the body I get to be a little more creative. Well, let's do to the leg. To the other leg, no reading at all. To the body, no reading at all. Now that was what I was getting in the cabinet too. I don't know why, but the damn thing has opened up to where it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Or maybe it's fake or something. I don't know. Let's try it the other way just to make sure. I got nothing. Nothing. I get no reading on it. So that one for sure is bad, but it did have the insulator, and it had enough of the heat compound to choke a horse. So I'm going to smear some of that same on this, put this back on, and bolt it back in the cabinet, and then we'll grab the next one. So we have moved on to the next one that was on the side. It's Q605, and it is supposed to be a 2N3716. So someone has replaced it with an NTE 385, which it appears is kind of a cross-reference to that. So it's probably fine to use that in it. Now, if I can remember which way, usually whenever you've got pairs, so they're using 3792s and 3716s. Usually when you've got them pairs, one's an NPN and one's a PNP, so they test backwards, different. So I don't know which one I was doing before, but I'm trying to do it exactly the backwards. So this is the one out of the machine. If you test between those two, you get 0.09, which probably isn't right. If you test between there and the body, you get something low too. So if I test a 3716, which isn't the exact same part, but should be pretty similar, you know. On a new one, I get 0.5, like you're supposed to, and then to the body, I get 0.499. So, you know, like if a transistor or a diode's good, usually it's between 0.4 and 0.6. So this one's good because it's a new one. This one that was in there is junk. It's shorted. So I'm going to put the heat compound on this one, right? And then we're going to mount it back in, and then we'll move on to the next one. So Q606 was open, Q605 was shorted. So I got to write these down because we're going to have to look at the deflection board too. All right, we're up to Q103. Also not acting right. So if I do this, I'm open. If I do this, I've got 0.504. It's a 3792, so I've got a new one. If I do the exact same thing on a new one, I get a reading between those two and the base. So this one's bad too, which is, you know, we found that in the cabinet too. I think the reason it hadn't blown fuses is because these two had went open, and this one was shorted, but it wasn't all the way shorted. So I don't know. We're going to check all this stuff on the deflection board too, though. So we got 3 out of 3 so far bad. What do you think about 3 out of 3 being bad, Joe?
Horrible.
Horrible, people. All right, so I'm going to put that one back in and grab the next one. Okay, Q705 appears to be good. Finally, we got a good one. If I check both ways, everything seems good. So that one's cool. And remember, whenever we were testing them, we got 2 that seemed good, and then 4 that seemed bad. So we found one of the good ones. Okay, so I'm going to put it back in, grab the next one. Oh, that's a 2716, by the way. I mean, a 3716. 2716 is an EEPROM. Forget I said that. 3716. Okay, it's Q706, and it's just fine. Tested it both ways. Everything is cool. So that must have been our 2 good ones. So we got one. So this is a pair. This is a pair. Whichever one's paired to this one's probably bad too. Okay. But we've been replacing them as we go. So we got one left. Let's go check it out. Okay, so Q102 definitely shorted. It's a 3716, and it's no bueno. So we're going to put a new one in there. So our final tally is 103 was open, 102 was shorted. 606 was open, 605 was shorted. 705 and 706 were good. All right. Okay, when I put this last one in, I want to show you how this little holder looks. So this is underneath. You're looking at them over there too. So the way it's made, if you're very careful, on the end where the screws go, there is a little indentation that slides up in the hole underneath the frame. And that way you're always centered just right. Because the thing you've got to worry about is if the legs on the transistor are touching the side of the holes that they go through. If they are, then it's shorted to the frame, which is ground, and it screws everything up. So you got to get it just right. So you put this on first, and then slide your transistor legs down into it and get it where it's just right, and then put your screws in so it holds. And then once you're done with that, you go through with a multimeter and check all of the cases to make sure they're not shorted to the frame. And what I do too is I just check all of the wires too on this plug and see if any of those are shorted to the frame, because the wires connect to the legs on the back. So if one of the legs is shorted to the frame, that wire will be shorted to the frame. So you got to check all that. The reason you have to check all this stuff is because if any of it is touching or shorting, as soon as you plug it in, it's going to all blow up. Then you got to do it all over again, right? So be very careful, work through it, check it all, and then you should be good to go. But we'll find out. All right, folks, we put all of the 6 transistors back in. None of them are shorted. None of the legs are shorted. Everything seems cool. So now what are we going to do? Well, we're going to see if there's a reason that those blew. So I made my list here, right? And we're going to go through and check everything. So remember Q102 and Q103, one was shorted, one was open. So I'm looking here on the schematics in that area, and that's the low voltage area of the power supply. This is, I guess one side of this creates the negative 28 volts and the other side creates the positive 28 volts, right? So one of these was shorted, one was open. So this is a very common failure point on these. So we're going to look on the deflection board to see if there's anything wrong here. So what I've done is I've written down everything in that area and its values and what we should check out. Okay. There's also some upgrades you can do to that. We'll look into, but and then these two were fine. So this area is fine. And if you look, it looks like to me. Let me see if I can figure this out. I'm trying to see if that's the vertical or the horizontal. Which is it? Which is it? Well, let's see, the lines come off of here and then run up to here and then run into here, and it's the X, so that's the horizontal. So apparently the horizontal was still working, but the low voltage wasn't, so none of it was amplified. And then this would be the vertical, and the vertical had failed. So these, one was shorted, one was not. So the same thing. I wrote down the various things in that area that we can check. So you're going to end up with a burnt resistor or a burnt transistor or something. Or it could just be that one of these burnt. But what's getting me is why didn't the fuse blow? Maybe it did and they replaced it. I don't know. Something don't add up, but we're going to look at it. So I made my little list here. And we're going to look on the deflection board and see if we can see a problem with any of this stuff. Or if the deflection board's fine. I think what happened before was he sent me the deflection board, just the deflection board, but I didn't have anything to test it in up here. And I worked on it a little bit. I don't even remember what I did. And couldn't find anything wrong with it, or if I found something wrong with it, I fixed it, whatever. So hopefully there won't be too much wrong with it. But if you have bad transistors on the board, on the frame, and then you plug in a good deflection board to it, you could screw up the deflection board. So you can see why the color vectors, although they were very, very fun, the operators hated them because it was problematic. So see how these 4 were shorted or open? 4 of them were screwed up. If there's a problem on the deflection board or whatever that was causing that, if I put that board back in there and turn it on, you're going to screw them up again and need to replace those 4 transistors again. Well, back in the early 80s, each one of those transistors ran like $50. So if the tech didn't know what he's doing, like I don't really know what I'm doing. You see what's going on here. I'm just following the schematics and some of the guides I find online and stuff. If the tech didn't know what he was doing, every time he turned the damn machine on, he'd blow $200 worth of transistors again. Very costly. So the operators didn't like them all that much. So they turned them into all kinds of other different games and took the monitors out and threw them away and all that. So if you're wondering why it's a little harder to find the color vectors, a lot of them didn't survive. The operators didn't like them. They kitted them into other games. But they are awesome machines, which we'll find out if I ever get this monitor running. So let's check out the deflection board. Okay, folks, so looking through it, I didn't find anything in the deflection circuits screwed up. But I did find a shorted diode in the low voltage circuit. So these 6100s, just a couple things, okay? This is the low voltage section. They make a replacement kit called a LV2000, I think. I think there's another one called an LV6100, where basically you take all this stuff off, because all of this was problematic back in the day. You take all this off, and a little board goes on there with a couple leads that you solder in a couple places, and it replaces all of this and makes it more reliable. This is the original setup, though. you can also replace just the components, but they're a known problem. From time to time, some of this stuff screws up. So the resistors all of this has been replaced. The caps, everything. The resistors are all fine. One of these diodes was bad, probably because they plugged it in with a shorted transistor on the frame, which is common. You know, I've done that myself. And by the way, it's just to clarify, whenever I find something bad or screwed up or something, I've made all these mistakes myself. I remember when I worked for an operator, I had a pinball machine with a solenoid that was locked on, and I called the guy at the office who worked on pinball machines, and he was trying to tell me how to test the transistor, and I had no clue what he was talking about. And the guy got so frustrated because he just wasn't a good teacher. He wasn't good at explaining stuff. So I was trying to test a transistor, which is super easy, right? And I couldn't freaking figure it out to save my life. Couldn't figure it out to save my life. And you know, so there's stuff on this side I have no clue how it works. So, you know, there's levels to this stuff, people. That's what I'm saying. And if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, join the club. I don't know what I'm doing on a bunch of stuff either. Okay, so one of these diodes was bad, probably because it was plugged in while the transistor was bad on the frame, right? So I replaced that. It was at D104 and D105. Looks like originally there were 1N914Bs. You could also use a 4148, it looks like, on them, right? But the real issue is Q100 and Q101. These burn up a lot. So this is an MPS A06. This is an MPS A56. These are both fine because they've been replaced. These are really cheap transistors. They're like, I think 30 or 40 cents, something like that. So you can just keep replacing it if it burns up, and maybe it won't for a while, I don't know. But really, this one here, 101, is a little undersized. So a common thing that people do, if you're not going to put that low voltage unit in, is to upgrade this one. So this is an MPS A56, and it handles the negative 30 volts that the game runs, right? And so they're suggesting that you upgrade it to an MPS U57, which is also a CEN U57, or an NTE 50. It's just a bigger part that can take more juice, more abuse. But really, most people suggest replacing all of this stuff with the LV2000 thing. Now, all of this, it's the original design. It will work like this. Okay, we're going to test it like this because I don't have anything to replace this one with, and I don't have a LV2000 right now, right? So we've put it back to original. This is pretty much the original design of the monitor. We're going to put it in, see if we can get it up and running, and then I'll probably either order the LV2000 or I'll order an upgraded one of these, a CEN U57. So it'll make it a little more reliable. But yeah, so all I found was one bad diode. Swapped it out. Easy enough. And so we're going to test it back in the machine and see if it works. Keep your fingers crossed, people. We're dancing in the moonlight around here. Okay, folks, it's time to try it. Are you nervous? You're not nervous, are you? I mean, this monitor's only worth about $800. You're not nervous, are you? Remember, it'll barely fit, too. We figured that out last time. Can I even do this while I'm holding the camera? Can I do it without breaking off the edge of the board again like they did? Is that how it even goes? Is it upside down? Holy... Okay, I got it plugged in. Here goes, people. I have no clue if this is going to work. Now, it very well may blow fuses. Shit might catch on fire. I don't know. We're going to see. Here we go. I heard it. The high voltage come up. The spot killer light's off. I don't see any smoke. Do you see any smoke? I don't see any smoke. Do you see any smoke? Is that deflection chatter I hear? I think I hear deflection chatter, people. Do you want me to walk around the... Folks, more important than if there's a freaking picture on the front is if there's a fire in the back. We're going to stand here for a second, okay? Everything looks cool. Spot killer lights off. Nothing. All right. Could it be a brightness issue? Could it be I didn't plug something in? What have we got here? I don't know which one's the brightness knob. Let me look in the book to figure out which one's the brightness. Okay, so the brightness is the bottom one on that flyback. We're getting there. So our problem is we have no vertical deflection. Didn't we figure out that the vertical was the section that was screwed up? One of the transistors was bad on. But as you can see, stuff is attempting to vector. It's trying to vector, people. Now that also could be an adjustment on the game board, because the game board tells it how tall to draw the vectors. So maybe we check that first just to make sure. But it's awful flat. It's probably, there's no vertical deflection at all. Okay, so the board here, the AVG board, is what actually sends out the signal and the linearity and the height and all of that stuff. And the manual says R71 is this one, and that is our Y height. Now, it's kind of in the middle of its range, so that's probably not going to be it. Yes, I can go down, and I can go the other way. So I'm going to leave it where it was, because they probably had it adjusted right. But I was just checking to make sure that wasn't it. If it was turned all the way one way, it might be flatline. So we probably still have a problem on our deflection board. But I'm going to put it all back together and turn it on again just to make sure that we don't have an issue where it wasn't plugged in right, and with the wire that does the X signal, the X out, make sure it was making good contact and everything. Okay, folks, I pulled the deflection board back out. I checked the transistors. They are completely fine. We did not burn up the transistors. Yay! So I am looking online at this bad boy right here. The Wells Garner 6100 Vector Monitor Frequently Asked Questions and Guide version 1.0. They came up with this way back in March of 2002. All right? And so they go all through it and tell you all about it and everything, blah, 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 blah. I'm also looking at the schematics here. And so I started chasing the Y circuit back through, checking all this. Everything's cool, everything's cool, everything's cool. And then I got up here to R610. That's the big one. So it says 1.5 ohm, 10 watt, non-inductive, which means like a audio quality resistor. That's that big white resistor right there. That thing is open. It's no bueno. Everything else seems good. Can't find anything with anything. So this one over here is the X circuit, and that sucker is 1.5 ohms like it should be. This one, it's 68,000 ohms. That's not right. That's like 40,000 times more than it should be. So I need one of those. So I ordered some just now. But I want one tonight. I don't want one later on. I want one tonight. Help me find one tonight. I've got to have some kind of board here that I can get one off of tonight. So I'm going to look around and see if I can find one. I think I don't know if I've got another one of these deflection boards around, but I might. So I'd love to find that resistor tonight, or like a used one on something, and swap it in there, and let's see if it gets it up and running so I can finish this video for you. So I'm going to look around and see what I've got. Okay, folks, so I was able to find another one on another deflection board that we're on a game that we're waiting to fix. And if I can do this with one hand without breaking out my other things. The one that was in it It's a 69 ohm resistor now because it's burnt slap the hell up. The one that I stole off the other deflection board. I need to practice my chopstick game. It's 1.5 ohm resistor. Just like it's supposed to be. So I'm going to slide that in it. And then we'll try it again. Hopefully we'll get a picture this time. Okay, so I put the resistor back in. I have screwed the board back in. I've plugged everything back in. So now let's see what we get. Same thing though. Now that resistor's in, it might blow a fuse or something. You never really know on these, right? Do you hear that noise? That's called deflection chatter. That's what you want. It's going. Wow. I think we're probably too tall. Remember I changed that little adjustment? And we might not be bright enough. Okay, so we're going to go into the test menu and go into the setup screen and see if we can get her set up. Okay, see how it's bowed a little bit? I think, not positive, but I think that's because they have put a Wells Gardner in it instead of an Amplifone. That was mentioned in the FAQ. The Ampliphones had a different angle tube on them, so it had something to do with the actual game. If it was designed to use an Amplifone, there's no pin cushion correction. If the game was designed to use a 6100, there's pin cushion correction. So Star Wars was designed for an Amplifone. I may be wrong about that. I don't know. And you can't tell too much while you're playing it. It's just when you go into test mode and stuff, you see that everything's not perfectly straight. Press auxiliary coin to continue. Okay. And the flicker, I think the flicker is normal. Press auxiliary coin for self-test. Here we go with the self-test. It's testing. I think. No errors detected. Yeah, see the bowed screen? Okay. It's the pot test. Seems good to me, folks. Maybe it's a little off, but I think it's alright. Okay, auxiliary coin to self-test. No divider errors, no matrix errors. That's the screen we were looking for. Okay, so we're going to make it a little wider and a little less tall. But I got to put the camera down to do that because I have to slide that little board out and it might slide out too far. Okay, I went and confirmed, yeah, the 6100s, that's the deal. They pin cushion, just like that. They even make a little corrector board if you want to try this, but like I said in gameplay, it's not that big of a deal. Intensity test. Okay, so in the manual, it tells you how many of those you're supposed to have on, so I probably ought to go look at that to see just how intense is it supposed to be. Let me go check that out. Okay, folks, so there's supposed to be 6 lines of each color, and that was adjusted pretty well. But the thing down at the bottom that says high, there is also supposed to be a low, and then also supposed to be a dim that you can just barely see, and then there's one above it that says off. But you want it to be off, so we got it. So it's getting there, not bad. It's all coming together. And as I turned up the brightness, the dot showed up in the middle, and then I turned it down until the dot just barely disappeared, and I could still see dim, and I can't see off. So I think that's about as good as we can get it for now. The white looks pretty white, and the red, blue, and green all kind of have the same intensity. So I think that's adjusted pretty well. All right, I'm going to show you the next few screens here that are harder to do because we've got the pin cushioning problem, and also if you look, it's moving just slightly. I think the reason for that is because there's interference coming from the high voltage cage because that little top is not on it. There's a little cage that helps with the interference. So that one we can't really do. Scale test linear. You can see it's a little bit off up here in the top right corner, but it's pretty good. Scale test linear and binary. It's scaling pretty good, people. I ought to be able to get down that tunnel. I can see a small little dot in the center of the screen, so I need to turn down the brightness just barely. You can barely see it. So I'm just going to barely turn it down. I wonder if I hit a button if it resets it. Yeah, it does. Okay, yeah, I can barely see that dot. Let me turn the screen down just slightly. Okay, I got rid of that little dot. Wouldn't want anything burning in, people. I have no clue what that screen is. And then that gets us back to the beginning. A little bit too tall. The where it says score at the top is just slightly off. Give us something to look at. Come on. Come on. There we go. Boy, look at the brightness with all the text on the screen. Doesn't like that, does it? The more that's on the screen, the less the monitor likes it. But part of the nature of the thing. Alright, I'm going to set up the tripod. We'll play it a little bit just to test it, and then I'm probably going to do a whole other video of us showing the thing off and playing through it and all that. So let's just make sure that the thing performs properly while we start it. Look how they were able to fade it out. Complete, straight up pimp stuff. Okay, folks, I'm only going to play for a second. Because like I said, I'm going to do a whole other video on it, I think. But we're just testing it. This is part of getting it working. You got to test it a little bit, right? So, while you're waiting to test it, give me a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film all this. There's a lot more you can do to these monitors. I mean, obviously, I'm not... this isn't my... I mean, I got it working, but this isn't my expertise. I'm decent at fixing about anything, right? But there is, if you read in that frequently asked questions, that FAQ, they tell you all these upgrades you can do, and you know, see how it's getting brighter right there? It's because there's so much on the screen. But so there's other things you can do. This is not, you know, this is not your end all be all on how to fix these things, but I'm just showing you it can be done. If you need to work on one, work on it. Okay, and we appreciate everybody that's been using our Amazon links. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you don't know about that, down below there is a link to Amazon. If you click on that, anything you buy while you're on Amazon, it gives us a royalty for it. So we appreciate everybody that's been doing that. We have them in different countries now too. There's ones all around the world. So thank you for everybody that's been doing that. And make sure to check out our brother's channel. My brother Donnie, there's 3 of us. Me, Joe, and Donnie. Donnie's the craziest. So go check us out over there. But it has nothing to do with arcade games though, but it's pretty fun. Okay, so remember the volume is way up. So I got to coin it up.
The force will be with you. Always.
Always. 6 credits.
Red 5 standing by.
Oh yeah, let's do easy. It's a shame you're not here to see it. The screen is so freaking vivid. You can't really tell how it looks unless you played it on an actual vector monitor. I mean, it's something special.
Red 5, we're going in.
We're going in.
Use the force, Luke.
Okay. I don't remember. Do I shoot the bomb when I get down there, or the? I guess I do, right?
Yahoo! You're all clear, kid.
I missed it. I don't know which one I hit. Are they gonna let me try it again? Did Luke really get a second shot? I don't remember which button you pressed.
Yahoo! You're all clear, kid.
I missed it again. I'm hitting the wrong button or something. Oh, they all do the same thing. Never mind. Okay, yeah, you got 4 guns. Okay, I see it now. Luke, trust me. Okay. Is he gonna shoot?
Yahoo! You're all clear, kid.
Watch this. Watch close. Did you see it? Oh, did you see Vader running off?
Going in. Use the force, Luke.
Oh, they got me. They got me.
Remember, the force will be with you.
The force will be with you, always. Okay, so the screen cut off right, the camera cut off right when the Death Star blew up, but I think it caught it though. The designers of the game knew that on a vector monitor, if you drew too much on the screen, it would screw everything up, right? And if you drew the beam off of the screen, it would screw everything up. So what they did was, whenever the Death Star blows up, they just have the beam do a bunch of crazy stuff, which makes the screen, and they put a bunch of lines on the screen, which overloads the monitor and makes the whole thing bloom up and get too big and too bright, like a big explosion. Brilliant! So they used a flaw in the design to make the explosion look super cool whenever you blow up the Death Star. How awesome is that? How come nobody does stuff like that anymore? What the hell? Alright, so I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I'll film a whole other video of us playing it and everything. So look for that later this week. But it looks like we've got it up and running. I like it. Let's see if I can get better at it before I film the final video. We'll see you on that one. Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching.